The 2024 Formula One Spanish Grand Prix was uneventful for Scuderia Ferrari, finishing 5th and 6th with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, respectively, in the same positions they started at the 4.657-kilometer Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya on Sunday. The only excitement for the SF24 cars came after a few laps when Carlos Sainz aggressively overtook his Maranello teammate at the exit of a turn, slightly damaging Charles Leclerc's front left wing. It was a questionable move by the Spaniard, who appeared to have deliberately ignored team orders that were clear to Charles Leclerc, namely to maintain positions and preserve the new soft tires in the early stages of the Barcelona race. Carlos Sainz saw an opportunity to get ahead and didn't hesitate to take it. This incident overshadowed the fact that Ferrari was the fourth best team on track, behind not only McLaren and Red Bull, but also Mercedes. The pace seemed similar to the Silver Arrows, and the performance in the qualifying session proved crucial. But Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz couldn't outpace Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. The last thing Ferrari needs is internal conflict. This tension was somewhat expected, given that Carlos Sainz hasn't officially decided his future in Formula One, making him both nervous and determined, less inclined to follow team orders, which he historically dislikes. Charles Leclerc commented that the battle with his Maranello teammate was unnecessary at that moment, as they needed to save their tires, especially in the last corner. He mentioned that he followed the orders while Carlos Sainz did not and passed him, taking an unnecessary risk. According to the Monegasque driver, this move cost them both time and resulted in damage to his front wing. He understood that it was a special weekend for Carlos Sainz, as it was his home Grand Prix, but felt it was not the right moment, and it cost him a position. Charles Leclerc's performance was lackluster until the final stint when he tried to catch the Mercedes W15 of George Russell on soft tires. With one more lap, he might have passed him, given the tire difference, as the British driver was on old hards. Charles Leclerc felt he performed well despite a less-than-optimal strategy. The main issue was the lack of pace compared to rivals, a clear fact. On the other hand, Carlos Sainz clearly dismissed Charles Leclerc's complaints, stating that the briefing the Monegasque mentioned never happened. He believed the new tires were necessary to immediately attack Mercedes, justifying his maneuver. It is therefore clear that there is a communication breach within the Ferrari team. Carlos Sainz indicated that, from his perspective, the situation was clear. They had new soft tires while Mercedes had used ones, so attacking was necessary. He was unsure what happened to Charles Leclerc in the first laps, suggesting that perhaps the Monegasque made a mistake. But Carlos Sainz saw an opportunity to pass and took it, asserting that he wouldn't stay behind his teammate forever and questioning what Charles Leclerc was worried about this time. Looking back to the performance on the track, the gap to Red Bull and McLaren was wider than expected for the Italian side, but having four teams fighting closely in the qualifying session is great for Formula One, though less so for Scuderia Ferrari, who hoped recent updates would bring them closer to wins. Instead, they face more competitors. Carlos Sainz remarked that he thought they would be closer to the front, but Red Bull and McLaren were far ahead, and on tracks like Barcelona, Mercedes was in front. The Spaniard emphasized the need to work hard on similar layouts, noting that while they had a good chance to secure the race victory on the streets of Monte Carlo and Monaco, there are more tracks like Circuit de Catalunya, where Ferrari is slower in high-speed corners. Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur cooled Charles Leclerc's claim that his clash with teammate Carlos Sainz denied him a better result in Formula One's Spanish Grand Prix, as the duo touched and the Spaniard retained the position off the track in the first laps of the race. The Monegasque revealed post-race that the light contact caused damage to his car and felt the incident compromised his prospects as he ended 4/10 behind George Russell. However, Frederic Vasseur contended that there were multiple occasions in the race that could be highlighted as points where Charles Leclerc lost the missing margin to fourth place. However, Frederic Vasseur argued that there were several moments during the race where Charles Leclerc lost the crucial time needed to secure fourth place. The French manager suggested that there were numerous instances where half a second was lost, including when Carlos Sainz let Charles Leclerc pass later on, costing a couple of tenths over 2 or 3 laps. The Ferrari team boss emphasized the need to analyze these instances without jumping to conclusions based on the driver's immediate post-race comments. Charles Leclerc mentioned in his post-race interview that Sainz had ignored a pre-planned strategy to maintain their positions and preserve their tires during the first stint. Frederic Vasseur refrained from commenting on whether Sainz had disregarded an agreement between the drivers and the team, which the Monegasque attributed to Carlos Sainz's desire to impress at his home race. The French manager explained that they don't discuss race strategies in such terms, noting that the first stint in Barcelona typically involves maintaining track position and preserving tire potential for later in the race, rather than pushing hard in the initial corners. Fred Vasseur dismissed concerns about the relationship between the two Ferrari drivers deteriorating due to the incident, the second contentious one in the 2024 Formula One Championship. When asked if this could be a turning point in their relationship, Frederic Vasseur responded that out of the car, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz have a very good relationship and mutual trust. He acknowledged that such incidents can happen between racers, but emphasized that their competitive emulation benefits the team. He noted that the competition between them had driven improvements last year, and that while there are occasional downsides, these are part of racing. In Barcelona, it was once again evident that in order to have a chance of beating the Max Verstappen, Red Bull tandem, rivals must achieve perfection, and Ferrari was far from such an achievement this weekend. Even the fastest car, albeit slightly as McLaren was overall faster, is not enough to guarantee success if the entire package doesn't work flawlessly. This includes strategic calls, pit stops, lapping back markers, or, as in the case of the Spanish Grand Prix, the first breaking point of the race. Before the race, only 4 drivers in the top 10 had new soft tires: Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, and the 2 Ferrari drivers. However, the Dutchman decided, unlike the rest of the group, to use a set of used soft tires to save the new set for the final stint. This difference wasn't apparent at the start. In fact, he was the one who overtook Lando Norris at the first corner. Both were overtaken by George Russell, but this actually played into Max Verstappen's hands, as he managed to pass the Mercedes on his first attempt, while Lando Norris remained stuck behind the Mercedes W15 car until the first round of pit stops. Lando Norris therefore saw his realistic expectations of securing a second race victory of the 2024 Formula One season vanish in an instant. However, it was different from 2 weeks ago at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada, where the safety car's entry thwarted his efforts. The British driver knows well that he can only blame himself for the missed victory in the Spanish Grand Prix, and that stings for a driver, even though there are other very positive aspects from the weekend for him. The first is that Lando Norris has a car capable of making him a contender for victory on every track in the calendar, and the overall standings are also in his favor, as he is now in second place, having overtaken Charles Leclerc, as Ferrari must quickly find solution after a disappointing outcome on a weekend in which the Maranello team introduced its second major aerodynamic package and was expected to make a significant step forward in terms of performance.